The heavy linen stock divorce papers trembled slightly in my hand as I watched my husband's face, not from a place of grief or lingering regret, but from the sheer physical effort it took to keep my own mouth from curving into a smile. "So, you're really just going to walk out?" Logan asked, his eyebrows raised in mock concern. His fingers were lazily intertwined with those of Sienna, his 24-year-old mistress. She sat beside him on my custom designer velvet sofa, the exact piece I had saved for 6 grueling months to import from a boutique house in Milan. Sienna's eyes eagerly scanned the living room of the historic property in Savannah, Georgia, lingering greedily on the brass architectural lighting fixtures, the artfully arranged custom furniture, and the hand-selected decor pieces that had single-handedly transformed this dated, decaying house into something out of an architectural digest spread. "This place is absolutely flawless," Sienna sighed, her manicured hand stroking the plush armrest with an unsettling air of possessiveness. "It's exactly the kind of aesthetic I've always dreamed of," Logan scoffed, waving a hand dismissively at me. "Take your old clothes and whatever personal junk you want, Chloe. Honestly, they just remind me of how miserable and uptight you've been lately." I nodded slowly, keeping my expression entirely vacant, not bothering to correct his massive foolish assumption. "I'll have the movers here tomorrow morning at precisely 8 a.m. Just remember, Logan, you explicitly agreed to a clean break with absolutely no division of property. We both sign, we both walk away with what is ours." "See? I told you she'd be reasonable," Sienna whispered, squeezing Logan's hand. "She knows when she's beaten." "My name is Chloe. I'm 29 years old, an upscale residential interior architect, and this is the story of how I emptied far more than just a piece of real estate. 3 years ago, I married Logan, believing we were building a partnership in every sense of the word. He was 33, worked as a commercial site supervisor, and had inherited his grandparents' dilapidated historic home in Savannah shortly before we met. Structurally, the house had good bones, but it hadn't been touched since 1982. It was a depressing labyrinth of stained wood paneling, scuffed linoleum, and peeling floral wallpaper. Logan had furnished the entire place with mismatched cast-offs from college friends and cheap plastic discount store basics. When we married, I didn't see the decay. I saw pure potential. Using my professional design network, custom trade discounts, and my own substantial personal savings, I painstakingly transformed that dead property into a masterpiece. Every single item was micro-curated. Mid-century statement furniture that complemented the high ceilings, architectural track lighting that drew the eye upward, and custom linen window treatments that framed the Savannah oaks outside perfectly. Because I ran my own design firm, I documented every single transaction, invoice, and purchase order, partly out of professional habit, and partly because I learned very early in our marriage that Logan was utterly reckless and financially irresponsible with his own money. That recklessness eventually extended to our marriage. The microaggressions piled up over the years. Grease-stained work boots left on my custom rugs, constant complaints about minor expenses, and dismissive mocking comments about my silly obsession with how spaces looked and felt. But I kept trying, naively believing that marriage required sacrifice. What I absolutely could not sacrifice, however, was discovering his archived text threads with Sienna 6 months ago. She was a temp coordinator at his construction firm, and her Instagram feed was a sad collection of aspirational luxury home decor she couldn't afford on her hourly wage. Their text messages made it blindingly clear what had actually drawn her to my husband: unlimited access to the stunning, high-end home she blindly assumed he had created. "Logan has such an incredible eye for luxury," Sienna had texted a coworker. "His wife is just a workaholic drone who doesn't appreciate the beautiful empire he's built in Savannah. I can't wait to move in." I quietly screenshotted everything: every text, every weekend flight confirmation, every luxury hotel receipt. I didn't use them for an emotional confrontation. I used them for cold, calculated confirmation. I needed to ensure my legal parameters were completely airtight before making my move. When I finally contacted Sienna directly, bypassing Logan entirely, and suggested the three of us meet at the house to sign the dissolution papers. She seemed more thrilled about her upcoming promotion to lady of the house than embarrassed about being exposed. She arrived on our porch wearing a designer dress that cost more than her bi-weekly paycheck, clearly bought to mark her victory. "I just want you to know, Chloe," Sienna said the moment she sat down, tilting her head with a layer of practiced patronizing sympathy. "I never intended to disrupt your life, but when two souls connect the way Logan and I have, let's just sign the paperwork," I interrupted smoothly, sliding the premarital property waiver across the coffee table. "We agreed before the wedding. What's brought in stays with the buyer. No division of marital assets." Logan grabbed the pen, eager to finalize his freedom. "Chloe's always been hyper-practical. It's one of her only good qualities." "Let me show you the rest of the layout," Sienna murmured to him, standing up and trailing her fingers along the custom oak wainscoting as if she already owned it. "I have so many magnificent ideas for hosting parties here." I watched in absolute icy silence as she walked through my beautifully curated rooms, mentally erasing my existence. "The light fixtures in the dining room are breathtaking," she called out. "And this custom marble dining table, is it bespoke?" "It is," I replied from the living room, my voice entirely steady. "Everything in this house was specifically engineered to elevate the space." "Perfect," Sienna breathed, a triumphant smirk plastered on her face. "I wouldn't alter a single detail." "You won't have to," Logan assured her, scribbling his signature on the final page. "Chloe's just taking her clothes and personal belongings tomorrow morning, right?" I nodded, sliding my copy of the executed contract into my leather bag. "The trucks will be in the driveway at exactly 8 a.m. That night, I moved my remaining clothing into the small guest room at the back of the house. From across the hallway, the muffled sounds of their laughter and clinking wine glasses drifted through the cracks of the door. They were celebrating their new kingdom. I didn't sleep a single wink. Not out of heartbreak, but because I was cross-referencing my master digital inventory spreadsheet one final time. Every serial number, every invoice, and every trade delivery receipt was organized into an airtight digital folder. At exactly 8 a.m., the heavy rumble of engines broke the morning quiet. Two massive 26-foot commercial moving trucks and a specialized panel van backed directly up the gravel driveway. 6 burly movers, accompanied by an independent electrician I frequently hired for my high-end design clients, stepped onto the porch. The foreman, a no-nonsense man named Marcus, gave me a crisp nod. "Good morning, Ms. Turner. We have the master manifest you emailed over. This is a full architectural extraction, correct?" "Every single line item on the spreadsheet, Marcus," I replied, handing him my tablet so he could log into the live checklist. "Work from the top down, wrap everything." The sudden racket of heavy boots and rolling packing tape instantly woke the house. Logan and Sienna emerged from the master bedroom, wrapped in matching robes, their faces a mix of confusion and irritation. "What the hell is going on?" Logan demanded, rubbing his eyes as two movers began expertly unscrewing the custom brass architectural sconces from the hallway walls. "Why are there so many people in my house? Chloe, how many damn clothes do you own to need 2 industrial trucks?" I didn't answer him. I simply stepped aside as a team of 3 movers moved into the formal living room, lifting the custom Italian velvet sofa and wrapping it in layers of protective, heavy-duty moving blankets. "Hey, drop that!" Logan yelled, rushing forward and trying to grab the armrest. "That's our living room couch, you can't touch that." I intercepted him, calmly sliding a heavy bound leather binder directly into his chest. "Open it, Logan." He snatched the binder, flipping through the pages with frantic movements. Sienna crowded over his shoulder, her eyes widening as she stared at the contents. The binder contained hundreds of pages of itemized retail invoices, international shipping manifests, custom trade receipts, and bank statements, showing direct payments from my design firm's corporate account. Every single piece of furniture, every light fixture, every appliance, every rug, and every single decorative element in this house was purchased independently by me, using my sole financial resources after we married. I stated, my voice echoing clearly in the rapidly emptying hallway. Usage does not dictate ownership under the clean break agreement you signed yesterday. You keep your grandparents' structure. I keep my interior architecture. You're You're taking the lighting? Sienna shrieked, her voice cracking as the electrician safely capped the exposed copper wires, where a $5,000 modern chandelier had hung just moments before. You can't do this. This is a robbery. Logan, tell her she can't leave us in the dark. It's entirely legal, Sienna, I said, offering her a cold, polite smile. Like Logan said last night, I'm simply taking my personal belongings. By noon, the historic house had transformed into a hollow shell. The living room was entirely empty, exposing the deep dark scuff marks on the old linoleum that my custom wool rugs had been concealing. By 2 p.m., the kitchen was completely stripped of its high-end convection microwave, the designer refrigerator, and even the custom hardware handles I had installed on the cabinets. Logan alternated between throwing furious corporate tantrums and begging me to be reasonable. Chloe, come on, this is malicious. I'm going to hire a trial lawyer and sue you for structural strip damages. On what grounds, Logan? I asked, completely unfazed as the movers carried the custom marble dining table past him. You signed a binding, non-disclosure waiver with no division of property. You legally acknowledge that everything brought into this house by me stays with me. You wanted a clean break. This is what clean looks like. By 4 p.m., the main moving trucks were fully loaded and locked. The house looked older, more decayed, and infinitely more depressing than it had before I ever stepped foot inside it. Without my carefully curated lighting, strategic mirrors, and luxury furniture to distract the eye, every structural flaw, water stain, and cracked piece of 1980s wood paneling stood out in horrific detail. But I wasn't finished. The two specialists from the smaller panel van walked through the front door, carrying industrial steamers and scraping tools. Sienna, who had been reduced to sitting cross-legged on the bare, dusty floorboards of the empty dining room, looked up with wide, terrified eyes. What are they doing? Why do they have tools? Mrs. Turner is here for the bespoke wall coverings, the lead specialist announced. Logan stormed into the room, his face turning an angry shade of crimson. The wallpaper! Are you out of your mind? You can't strip the literal walls of my inheritance. It's not the wall, Logan, I said, slinging my luxury leather bag over my shoulder as I walked toward the front door. It's a custom-printed removable textile design created exclusively by my firm. It cost $8,000, and it is legally registered as corporate inventory under my name. And as your girlfriend so beautifully put it last night, I wouldn't alter a single detail. The harsh sound of metal scrapers peeling away the luxury adhesive echoed through the hollow hallways. I stood on the porch, watching through the bare windows as the vibrant, custom-designed patterns came down in long, satisfying sheets, exposing the ugly, stained drywall underneath. Logan and Sienna were left standing in a cavernous maze of exposed copper outlets, bare subfloors, and harsh, unshielded overhead bulbs. The illusion of his beautiful empire had vanished into the back of my moving trucks. 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed on the sleek kitchen island of my brand new apartment. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Chloe, please don't hang up. Logan's voice came through the speaker, entirely stripped of the arrogance that had once defined him. He sounded exhausted, his voice echoing slightly against what I assumed were still entirely bare walls. What do you want, Logan? I asked evenly, pouring myself a glass of water. He let out a ragged sigh. Sienna left. She packed her bags 3 days ago. She said she couldn't live like this. She said the house looks like a depressing, abandoned construction zone. She told me she didn't sign up to live in a glorified dorm room. I leaned against my new quartz countertop, feeling absolutely nothing but a mild sense of closure. That sounds like a personal problem. Chloe, I was wrong about everything, he pleaded, his voice cracking. I didn't realize how much of the lifestyle, how much of everything was entirely you. I can't live in this place like this. The cheap secondhand furniture I found on the weekend looks horrific. Would you please consider just coming by? even if it's just as a consultant? I'll pay your firm's full design fee. I just need you to make this place livable again. I looked around my new space. The proceeds from selling the old furniture had completely funded a fresh, hyper-modern renovation that perfectly reflected who I was now: unburdened, successful, and entirely independent. "I'm afraid my firm is fully booked, Logan," I said smoothly. "But I wish you the best of luck with your decorating." I ended the call before he could utter another word, immediately blocking the number. The divorce had been finalized by the courts a week prior, officially dissolving any remaining ties. Some spaces, once emptied of their clutter, are meant to stay that way forever.